When you worked with Soros for 12 years, one of the things that you said you've learned was that focus on capital preservation and taking a really big bet. And that many managers make all their money on 2 or 3 ideas, and they have 40 stocks or 40 assets in their portfolio, and it's that concentration that has worked. Maybe you could go into that a little bit more, how that works, how many of those concentrated bets did work when you decided to get out. If it didn't work, do you add when the momentum goes up, assuming the algos don't interfere with it?
As the disclaimer, if you're going to make a bet like that, it has to be in a very liquid market. Even better if it's a liquid market that trades 24 hours a day. Yeah. So most of those bets for me invariably would end up being in the bond and currency markets because I could change my mind. Right. But I've seen guys like Buffett and Carl Icahn do it in the equity markets. I've just never had the trust in my own analytical abilities to go in an illiquid instrument, which an equity is if you're going to bet that kind of size on. You just have to be right. And for all the hoopla around Mr. Buffett, from 98 to 2008, that's a 10-year period, Berkshire Hathaway, it was down 40%. Nobody talks about that. If you had a hedge fund, you couldn't have a hedge fund down for 10 years, 40%. They would have been out of business in year 3, 4, somewhere in there. But to answer your question, I'll get a thesis, and I like to buy not in the 0 inning, and maybe not in the first inning, but no later than the 2nd inning. Okay. And I don't really want to pile on in the 3rd or 4th or 5th inning. So I guess examples are the best. One bet I made which was the gift that kept on giving. It was after a funny incident with Soros. I had been there 6 months. It wasn't clear who was running the fund. Well, it was clear it was him, but he was trading very badly, and I was trading very badly, and I had come from an environment, and honestly, where people thought I was some kind of superstar, and no one had ever questioned me, and I flew to Pittsburgh because I had Duquesne at the same time, and he blew out my bond position while I was on the plane. I'd had total autonomy anywhere I'd been my whole career, so I basically called him up on a payphone, that's what we used back then, and resigned. When I came back, he told me he was going to go to Eastern Europe for 5 months, and that he wouldn't be trading, and maybe we were just in each other's hair, and you couldn't have 2 cooks in the kitchen, and let's see whether that was a problem or if I really was inept. His words, not mine. So while he was in Eastern Europe, the wall came down. And I had a very, very strong belief that Germans were obsessed with inflation. I know that most of them thought Hitler would have never happened if the Weimar Republic thing hadn't happened. And when the wall came down and it looked like they're going to merge with East Germany, the world's thesis was, this is going to be terrible for the Deutschmark. My thesis was, the Bundesbank is the most powerful institution in Germany. The public's obsessed with inflation, and they will do whatever it takes on the rate side to keep that currency strong, and there's no way the Deutschmark is going down. In fact, the place is going to grow like a weed with all this labor from Eastern Germany. So while he was gone, this happened, and the Deutschmark gets killed the first 2 days. Now here we are in 0 inning, and I went in very, very big right away because the market gave me an opportunity. I can't remember what it was down. It was down 3 or 4%. I thought it should be up 10%. And then that, of course, led to this recurring devaluations. Started with Italy, but obviously the pound, let's not go over that. That's been beat to death. Sweden, all these things we kept playing, and they're going on and on. But there's a case where we never really averaged up, and in fact, we couldn't because we were dealing in those instances with fixed currencies. So there's no price momentum. You're betting that something's going to break. But even against the dollar, it's all in right away. Normally, I'll go in with, say, a third of a position and then wait for price confirmation. And when I get a technical signal, I go. I had another very pleasant experience with the successor of the Deutschmark, which was the euro. I can't remember, I think it was 2014, when the thing was at 140, and they went to negative interest rates. It was very clear they were going to trash that currency, and the whole world was long the euro, and it had been going on for years. I'd like to say I did it all at 139, and I did a whole lot, but I got a lot more brave when it went through 135, and that's a more normal pattern for me.
Yeah.
Then there would be the strange case of 2000, which is kind of my favorite and involves some kind of luck. I had quit quantum, and Duquesne was down 15%, and I had given up on the year, and I went away for 4 months, and I didn't see a financial newspaper. I didn't see anything. So I come back, and to my astonishment, the NASDAQ has rallied back almost to the high. But some other things have happened. The price of oil has gone up, the dollar's gone way up, and interest rates have gone up since I was on my sabbatical. And I knew that normally this particular cocktail had always been negative for earnings in the U.S. economy. So I then went about calling 50 of my clients. They stayed with me during my sabbatical, who were all small businessmen. I didn't really have institutional clients. I had all these little businessmen. And every one of them said their business was terrible. So I'm thinking this is interesting, and the 2-year is yielding 604, not that I would remember, and Fed funds were 6.5. So I started buying very large positions in 2- and 5-year U.S. Treasuries. Then I explained my thesis to Ed Hyman, and I thought that was the end of it. And 3 days later, he's run aggression analysis with the dollar, interest rates, and oil, what happens to S&P earnings. And it spit out a year later, S&P earnings should be down 25%, and the street had them up 18. So I keep buying these treasuries, and Greenspan keeps giving these hawkish speeches, and they have a bias to tighten. And I'm almost getting angry, and every time he gives a speech, I keep buying more and more and more. And that turned out to be one of the best bets I ever made. And again, there was no price movement. I just had such a fundamental belief. So sometimes it's price, sometimes it's just such a belief in the fundamentals. But for me, I've never trusted myself to go put 30 or 40% of my fund in an equity. I mean, I did it when I was managing $800,000, which is what I started with, but not in a liquid position.